We're back to my laptop's broken ass camera. I'm well aware. I've got plans and I just kind of wanted to talk about it here on YouTube and, what was standing in the way of the budget on, doing things like actually getting an upgrade for that camera system such that it doesn't turn into a blurry fucking mess for my audience that I'm well apprised of and aware of, but the primary uh, purpose of this channel is my voice, so hopefully people can actually understand what I'm saying. Although, investing in a much better microphone system at some point in the distant future might make sense to actually say things on here and to actually be vocal here on YouTube. But unfortunately, like I've got other plans and, there's a mountain of shit that's in the way of that at this point, Nary, a good day that is not marred by negative circumstances, it seems. Yesterday I had a very great news in the morning, and by evening I had the bad news that had come in. I did finally achieve something that I have been struggling towards, almost like I'm struggling towards rebirth after, having hikimori'd myself and everything. But I managed to actually blow through and basically pass the drive test. And also, within the past couple of months, something interesting has happened, I guess, from a systems point of view, in that I managed to learn about the .xintrc file on Linux, which means that I am now proficient in installing Gentoo. I had never really managed to do it successfully because I couldn't get it up, to at least a window manager or anything. And thanks to the graces of Mental Outlaw and the Gen 2 wiki, I've managed to cobble it together, and figure out what Mental Outlaw fucking neglected to mention in his, video install files for XFCE. And, basically I had a Gen 2 box up and running for a while. Although, of course, as notorious as everybody has pointed out before as internet jokes, the sound doesn't work. I have to get Linux compatible speakers and a Linux compatible printer and everything. And part of this was idle curiosity about the fact that Linux might have better print drivers than the print spool piece of shit on Windows, because I'm starting to think it isn't actually that it doesn't that the printer is a piece of shit. It just doesn't spool, well to the actual printer, transferring data over the network to it. It tends to get clogged up, and then it's really difficult to clear out the queue to, you know, it's a pain in that process. It's a world from hell right there, on top of everything else that's wrong with printers, notorious in the IT space. But I did want to experiment with Linux printers. But I have to get one. It's like you have to do everything in inverse in the world of Linux, because like everywhere else, in every other operating system, you're kind of thinking, plug and play, but sometimes plug and pray. But you know, you're able to do that. You're able to get away with it. But once you go over to Linux, it's like you have to tailor your hardware to the fucking hardware, the software that you're trying to run, the operating system, and then figure out what's basically compatible with it. And to that end, I've become a Gentooist. So that's other good news. But the bad news was I got approached on Twitter by a pirate that also was afflicted with autism, that begged me for invites to some of the private trackers that I was involved in, and have had various difficulties with. One of them, I just didn't have the two-factor authentication, uh, phone that was tied to it anymore, so I had to go through the whole process, and it was too involved and it took way too long. And eventually I got off my ass and got that done with. But I went and invited him after that. And I mentioned at some point that I would like, file list and everything, just in passing, if he could repay the favor at some point in the future, and everything, that would be nice, and everything that I was looking for it. But lo and behold, his account gets flagged for having multiple accounts at BTN, because the dude is an amateur and doesn't really know what he's doing as far as ban evasion. Like he's not at my level of savvy, where it's like we'd go and use residential proxies and then just dump them to a fucking seed box, and everything, and keep my IP address out of it entirely as far as access to the sites, because I know what residential proxies are and how they punch a massive hole in the VPN shields and everything. But for this, the guy got flagged, and I had to dump the entire convo I had with him out in BTN's, broadcast the net's disabled channel, and they basically told me, well, you were account trading, and that's strictly forbidden, and therefore, they sent me on my way. Fuck you. And so, my response was basically, well, then, fuck you back. I am now in open revolt. This means mutiny. You know, Basically, I have self-publicized a manifesto about this, which is to say that my philosophical point of view about all this, which is, to say the only just way for the high seas to be governed is by democracy, and unfortunately, allowing our pirate ecosystems to be taken over by these torrent websites and these private trackers has derived a situation in which a bunch of arbitrary bureaucrats have gained authority over the rest of us without being elected. A bunch of unelected bureaucrats whose power and authority is inherently invalid, illegitimate, and unjust because of its completely arbitrary nature, and because of the fact that it derives from property rights and not from, democracy and democratic consensus. The rules thundered down on us as if from Moses bringing down the Ten Commandments onto all of the pirates. For these reasons, my intent to deal with my accounts being disabled is to go to an invite seller, simply buy another invite to an email address that is entirely new, creatively generated by yours truly, and then access the site with residential proxies and use the fucking seed box to download the files. But that will not happen tomorrow. It will not happen today. It will not happen a month from now. It will not happen at a disclosed date. My attack on your site will happen at an undisclosed date of my personal discretion, and probably on a personal whim, because even I do not know exactly when I plan to move against you, but I will. I am in open revolt. My manifesto has basically just stated that there is only one valid way for power to be derived, which is through democratic consensus. And since the moderation staff there has basically been appointed and has managed to, propagate their own power on the World Wide Web by being the domain names registers and nothing more than that, then there really is no legitimacy to the power structure there at all. It's arbitrary. It's for these reasons that I intend to flip the moderators off and sneak back in with a new account, which violates the rules, and just break the rules better and cover my tracks, because that's what I do. I've been a hacker in training for the past couple of months, and one of the things that I have learned to do extremely well is cover my own tracks, which means residential proxies are all it would take to sabotage the authority of the administration in this place. Though I am loath to have to go through this, I also know how to set up a BNC to access IRC and keep my shit out of your networks. You can fucking suck my dick, you first day internet kids. I will find a way back in, and I have nothing left to lose anymore because you've taken that from me. So, I will be hell driven about it like I've always been. I'm not I'm the kind of person that, just keeps trying harder and harder and harder until I fucking succeed. So, you think I'll ever give up? No, I won't until I beat you and the mods lose to me. I declare mutiny. The high seas should be governed by democracy and not by some fucking fuckwits, claim to property. And I have said my piece about that. But I have been dealt, one, massive success after years and years and years of struggling for it. 8 fucking long years of driving my ass off and everything, and just being, stuck because the DMV, had a tendency to, it's a stickler. They hassle everybody, checking on a little checklist about, every little small infraction that really doesn't make any fucking big difference to traffic at all, like the occasional forgotten signal. But I just went in, forced myself awake at 10:40 and managed to sail right on through and pass. And now I've got my license from the state of Oregon. you know, I finally achieved that. But no, by night, all that had given way to, questions of, how well do you know this person who invited you? Now I want the whole convo, and of course, what I'm really thinking, is why the fuck, in the future, if my accounts get disabled, I will keep this conversation in mind and just not even bother, you know, trying to get them re-enabled. I will just go straight to a fucking invite seller and fucking have another one created. I'm done. I'm done. I have no respect for your power structures. I never have, and I never will. I mean, all of my time on IRC has taught me just how arbitrary the fucking leadership structure happens to be. I mean, I'm a former member of a release group in the first place. I was there for all of it. I saw it happen and unfold and unfurl. And, to be honest with you, about the structure and everything of all of it in our pirate ecosystems, the authority is pretty fairly, entirely arbitrary at the end of the day, and interchangeable one pirate for the other. I'm so fucking done. I'm done. I have no respect for this power and leadership structure at all. Because again, it's all derived from, we have the claim to it, because we own the property behind it. Unfortunately, our descent into this experiment with private trackers has enabled this kind of shit. It's an unfortunate malaise of our mistake of going down this path, I suppose. But for better or worse. So to the leadership, to Reixo, I would like to send you a personal message. 2 middle fingers. Fuck the rules. Fuck the consequences for violating them. Fuck your authority. And fuck authority. We're done. I will be back. Not tomorrow. Not in a month. Not any point between. Not 2 months, 3 months. I have plans. See, I, on top of every other bit of news I am telling you, intend, because there's a course, and I know that the internet is going to tell me that you can learn how to do this shit without paying anybody anything. And you're right. YouTube has tutorials on all of it, but there's a certification behind it, and there are people looking for graduates of this school the moment that they get hired on, and it means I get to spend a couple of nights in the Lonsdale Quay in Vancouver, Vancouver, Canada. Basically, Van City. Forgetting which Canadian, British Columbia. We're heading north, and I was told, preconditioned by family that I needed to pass, the damn test to actually get for them to go. And now I have my license and I'm going north, and this certification is going to be my actual first IT cert and move as I start to climb the IT, certification, and actually start solving the issue that I brought to you years ago, where it was like, I'm good with computers, but really don't have any, I don't know how to claim experience at fixing them, on a resume, when that experience has been had in the comfort of my own home and everything. But I've been doing essentially the basics of the A plus, tech support level for, years and years and years, where like even techies who talk to me can feel that, energy and vibe with me, where I basically know what I'm doing in that space. And, they know that it's not at the level of you have to have a cert. If you know, if you don't, you don't, sort of thing. And every time I talk to a tech, it's like that. We have that sort of vibing with each other. Anyways, so there's this WTC, or certifications in electronics repair technology, which essentially, there's job placement with it, and you know these guys will train you up on using a soldering iron and doing smartphone repair, and I'm basically following in the footsteps of Lewis Rossman, and everything through this and everything. But for me, it was like, learning how to solder also has other applications, than what this school will basically train you in smartphone repair. But, the wireless training center.com has courses, and basically the instructors are basically telling us that they can travel down here, but we have to pay for their hotel expenses, or we can travel up there to meet them. And we're like, where are you located? And they're like, Surrey, and so we start looking, Surrey, Canada, and we start looking on, the maps for, these guys, like where this is actually located, and, where Surrey is actually located. And we start to realize that it's actually in Van City itself. And, of course, immediately what goes to our heads is 30 years ago, we went to the Lonsdale Quay, and we stayed in there because dad went up there for disaster recovery when he was working at Standard Insurance. And so, we're all processing, and it was like, yeah, it would be really nice to go back to that and spend a couple of nights there. And so I'm saving up, but I have learned in my time on the internet that money makes problems like the moderation staff at Broadcast.net go away. And so money will be used to cure and to alleviate myself and to negate this consequence that I have suffered. You know, the only consequence that I will truly suffer is that I will have to bribe a couple of people to, buy my way back into your godforsaken website, which I know is strictly speaking against further rules. But see, that's where covering your tracks comes in. I just won't get caught.